I'm actually going to get a video done tonight, and hopefully this will be a more common occurrence now that I'm not spending all my time designing the website. I'm going to have a look quickly at some larger cap stocks that have come up on the price and volume scan. A lot of stocks came up on this scan tonight, probably though because the volumes yesterday were so low that there was a lot with higher volumes today, but I'm going to flick through them. As you'll see from my style, if I don't see a pattern relatively quickly, probably within 5 or 10 seconds of looking at the chart, then I'm not interested. I'm moving on to the next one. So I keep it very simple, but I'll give you a rundown of what I see anyway. And none of these I'm in. I don't think the ones I've got on the list are just a few that I've picked up on the scan. So all right, here we go. AMP. This is the daily, still under the 200 EMA. It's been dipping, broke through support here at $4, and it's swung the last 3 or 4 days and broken that little resistance there, which was at 410. So broken through there today. No great volume on the break. I'd probably, for something like this, I'd go down to an hourly chart and have a look at the break there and see if that volume kicked in. So there's a quite obvious break of trend line. Probably a nice aggressive entry would have been back here in the early 4s, 401, 402, and I would have liked to have seen some volume kick in, and there's not a great lot of volume yet. So interesting chart, but not high on my priorities just yet. Okay, AQP is the next one. Again, there's a daily over a year, still in a very strong downtrend, and I've tried to focus on some of the ones that look like potential recovery plays. But interestingly, what looks like a double bottom here, and then confirmed by the break of that little res there at 222. So today closed at 227, I think you'll find, and on its highs. Again, we can zip to bring it down to the hourly. It's a bit scattered though, don't get too much from that, but some decent volume kicking in there. So go back to the end of the day. Yeah, so this is probably one I'd keep an eye on. Definitely recovery play, got a lot of upside. You could maybe put some fibs on it. We'll try and whack some fibs on this chart. If you wanted to really play short term, you could go from that little range there. So you're looking at 230 odd, which is almost there for the 38. 50 is about $2.40, and between 250 and 260. You've used that as a range, which obviously picks up a few of these gaps along here as well, and maybe that top there would be the next top you'd be looking at for some support if it kicked resistance if it kicked on. So that chart certainly will be one I'll keep on my watch list tomorrow. Bendigo Bank is the next one. I need to get this overlay off. A bit rusty doing these videos, haven't done one for a long time, but I will try and keep them up a little bit more. Okay, Bendigo Bank again, a stock that's been in a fairly serious downtrend for the last couple of months. Had hit a high of 970, which was a lower high, as you can see, so probably a bit of a dead giveaway for a short there in hindsight. And it's fallen right down to 740. 1, 2, 3, 4 days now where it couldn't get itself any lower, so some really good consolidation, and then breaking today on a bit of volume. Again, let's move into the hourly chart, see what that can tell us. Quite obvious break of this trend line. This is a 5-day moving average there, so it's gapped up above that. Consolidated a little. I would probably set an alert now somewhere around either that high or maybe up to there, just to give myself a little bit more room, which is 767. It closed at 760 today with a high of 764 by the look of it, 763. So I'd either set an alert just above there, 764, maybe one up here at 767, and look for an entry there. That's of interest to me as well, and I'll keep an eye on that one tomorrow. Again, you could whack some fibs on that. We'll do that now, just to have a look, just to get an idea of potential targets. If you wanted to run it from that one to there. Now, very interestingly, look at where the 38 falls, right there where all of that resistance was previously on the way up. So quite interesting how these things really do often fall into place. Even looking back on data, the 50 looked like a very obvious spot as well. There's that support there before this spike. So this dip to here or sorry, this rise from there to there is exactly the same as where it's dipped from there to there. So we've got some repeating ranges there. Yeah, so that's one that I'll certainly be keeping an eye on if the market retains a little bit of strength in the next few days. Okay, next we'll go to BPT, not really one of the larger ones, but my scan's divided into big, medium and small, and it was in the big list, so I've put it in there. Really nice trend line here. It's trending above the 200 moving average, and again, after this correction from 180 down, 3 or 4 days now of consolidation. Again, we go to the hourly, you can see this consolidation here now for a few days, so really needs to break this little hourly range, and that's what I'd be looking for. An aggressive play would be at 151 here, just breaking through. A little bit more conservative, waiting for that 153 break, and again wanting to see a little bit of volume. A lot of talk that this might have a cap raise, so that's one thing to keep in mind as well. But as far as a trending chart and a nice potential swing low, that's a great looking chart. Okay, error. I'll do a couple more, and this will do for this video. Again, a downtrodden stock, way below the 200 moving average. Sideways range for some time now. Probably one of the biggest bars it's had in a while here as far as the length of the bar. Some pretty decent volume. Again, let's go down to that hourly, see if that can tell us any more. You can see some really powerful volume there, and some volume here on this last bounce as well. So this is one that will interest me a lot tomorrow, and there's the obvious entry, a break here of 132.5. As far as where you'd want to look to get out, for me, I'd probably, if it falls more than halfway back into this range here, I'd probably want out. So if I was position sizing 117 to, let's say, 133 for even numbers, so 16-cent range, halfway back in is 8. So an entry at 120.33, halfway back in is 125. This previous res may became support. So if it was a longer term plan, I was prepared to give it that 8 or 9 cents or whatever that is, then my stop would be down here somewhere rather than waiting for right back down there, and then I'd position size accordingly. Plenty of upside, of course, if it can kick on. Okay, next we'll do 2 more. One still, it's been talked about on HipChat quite a bit. You can see all the volume that's kicked in the last couple of weeks as it broke this downtrend. So many stocks have looked like that and had some decent run. That's why ERA interests me so much as well. So it's had this run. Now let's see if the fibs picked up this little dip or not. So if we run the fibs from the top there back to there, pretty close to the 50 looks like where it dipped to. I might I'll pull this down and go to the hourly, and we'll see if we can pick it up on there. Okay, so we run it from the top even to the breakout. I prefer to, if there's a gap, I often run the fibs just to the bottom of the gap. And again, it picked up that 50 pretty well. So if you were looking at entering one still on a dip and you're running the fibs on there, again, nothing's exact in charting. So for me, even this band here from the 38 to the 62 is what I tend to look at for the fibs. Like anything in that area for me then brings it into an alert stage where maybe the swing could happen. But pretty textbook really there. Tried a little around the 62 originally, right on it, failed, got down to the 50. 50 looks to have pretty much held, and then it's bounced and gapped up, held that gap, broken that, and now consolidated again. So again, 2 obvious entries, a break of this bar there, so at about $1.14, or you could wait for the actual swing up here at $1.16 or so. You'd want to see some volume kick in. That's probably one of the things that lacks at the moment. There's not an awful lot of volume here, so that's something I'd be looking at on any movement. Okay, alright, one last one. We'll do Rio. Okay, Rio's so gappy, of course, and that's because it trades in the UK and US and so on, so it's pretty much a 24-hour stock, and that's why we get so many gaps. But it does trend and trend pretty well when you get these trend lines starting to develop. So the first thing I look for is a break of this trend line, right on it now. So we would be looking for a break here, and a nice little swing. Again, not that much volume, so Don't know if the hourly chart will tell us much with all those gaps. Really a couple of days consolidation here, 3 days of sideways movement, pretty much 4 if you count this one and the little island at the bottom here. So a break of 64.50 or whatever today's high was, 64.45. Break of that's probably worth a little play, and you wouldn't have to risk too much. You could set your stops at the low of today even, or if you wanted to give it a little bit more room, low of the day before, so down here at 63.40, something like that, and again position size accordingly. Lots of risk reward if you're thinking it can get up here, even anything up to here in the 69s. Loads of risk reward there with a trade like that, so definitely worth looking at. Alright, that's all for this video. I'll try and post another one on the smaller stuff later on. Bye.